Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your fine swinging services. How are you all? We're all doing very, very well. Yes, there's a lion there, there's a great ape over there, there's lots of Tarzan-y type paraphernalia. There's even Tarzan on my chest with a big lion there. I loves me a bit of Tarzan, he does. I kind of prefer Jane, but honestly, I'm a massive, massive fan of Tarzan. Edgar Rice Burroughs is fantastic. Proto one-man army action adventure hero that we've had through movies ad infinitum ever since. But kind of Burroughs sort of paved the way with a jungle adventurer, a child orphaned, but he was born into aristocracy, Lord Greystoke. He's brought up by great apes. He has an affinity with the apes and the rest of the jungle animal wildlife. He knows all the tribes. He is found, he goes back to civilization, or rather, he ventures forth into civilization and society and learns all the tropes of 19th century refinement, but is restless, and his yearning for adventure and that primal instinct of his takes him back to the jungle. And he has his wife Jane, his beautiful wife Jane, of course, and she goes with him, and they have many more adventures. Edgar Rice Burroughs initially wrote Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, or Tarzan the Ape Man. It's one of them. I've got them all. They're all over there. See that great big book there? That's all the stories that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote about Tarzan. And then there were many more. But in 1912, he created it, first in a magazine, then it was in book form. And I think he wrote 25 sequels to Tarzan, his own Tarzan brand. And then other authors wrote stuff, and then there was cartoons, there was the Johnny Weissmuller movies, which are all there. There's the big box set of all, I think, 14 Johnny Weissmuller movies with Maureen O'Sullivan. The first two of which are very noteworthy because they're very risque as well for their time. Oh yeah, and they're great. Love them. Ron Ely in the 1960s, for a short run, it was only about 2 or 3 years that he did Tarzan. He had the famous Tarzan cry, of course, which I would play for you. But the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, and this is the thing, folks, this is what we're getting on to. The Edgar Rice Burroughs estate hold the rights to that sound, believe it or not. Now, I know I could probably play it and get away with it. Believe it or not, it's actually my ringtone on my phone. It has been for years. I've always used it. It's great on trains and on buses when you suddenly hear, oh. It's just brilliant. Hey, that wasn't too bad, was it? And I haven't even been drinking. But they own the rights to that. So, knowing my luck, if I played it, oh, they'd come down like a ton of bricks. Now, even though there's been the Johnny Weissmuller movies, there's earlier movies as well of Tarzan, the Ron Ely stuff, the Disney movie, the animated movie. Then you've had Alexander Skarsgård in 2016 with Legend of Tarzan, which I'm playing the soundtrack to right now, which I love that movie. I think it's a great, great film. It did not do well. People lambasted the shoddy CGI animal stampede at the end, and the rather lackluster finale when you've got a villain of Christoph Waltz, and really he doesn't get his comeuppance properly after all the build-up. And this Tarzan is muscular, he's superb. The chase through the jungle to try and catch up with the train, and then the fight on the train with all these mercenaries and soldiers is outstanding. I love it. But the film was troubled, and for the full version we haven't got. They rushed it, bits were taken out, and the version they put out isn't really the vision that the director and the makers actually wanted. But I still love it and wish there had been a sequel to it, because Margot Robbie was playing Jane. But it was great, I loved it. And you've had animated shows and TV serials and 1,000,001 graphic novels. I've got loads of them. There's a full run there of the complete Joe Kubert years, which is for Dark Horse, and that is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. There's another one there. Like, fabulous artwork. It lends itself. Jungles, tribes, giant creatures, rhinos, elephants, jungles, pyramids, lost cities, mercenaries, adventurers, swamps, giant spiders, giant ants, aliens as well, and reptilian people, lizard men. Yeah, it's all there, because Edgar Rice Burroughs, of course, would do At the Earth's Core as well. So, and he was one of these practitioners of, you know, there could be a hollow earth, you know, with the sun and seas and all sorts and other races there. And that is in a lot of his original stories, which are high adventure, and in a lot of the graphic novels as well, and a lot of the follow-on novels and stories which came out after he finished doing his Tarzan run. But why am I talking about Tarzan, folks? Why? Why indeed? Because Sony Pictures have bought the rights to Tarzan, and they want to bring him back to the big screen again. That would be something to applaud. And hopefully it will be something we can go, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Sony. But Sony have said something. What do you think they've said? Well, they need to bring him into the 21st century. So they're going to have to reinvent him from the top down, they said. I would have thought it should be from the bottom upwards, but, you know, grassroots, you know. So what Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote, white colonialism, slavery, white supremacy, all that sort of thing, which was okay. You know, has it ever been okay? But it was acceptable to read about and see movie adventures in that, with that sort of background back in the day. Now audiences don't want to see that. I understand that, you know, but the graphic novels have massively revamped and brought Tarzan into the modern day. He takes on slave traders, he takes on ivory smugglers, he takes on corrupt governments after blood diamonds, he takes on all of this. And even in the Edgar Rice Burroughs original stories, he was affiliated to certain tribes and looked after them against white slavers and other, you know, Western mercenary corrupt bastards. So he was doing his thing back then as well. But my fear of this is that it's gonna be modern day telling, of course. I mean, we had Greystoke as well, Christopher Lambert, who is superb as Tarzan. He has that otherworldly quality of a man literally out of place with society, who was brought up in a jungle environment by fantastic Rick Baker apes. And it's a great film, but what Greystoke lacks in, or has in aristocratic airs and virtues and stateliness and a wonderfully visual movie, it lacks in action. And as I said before, Tarzan is the proto one-man Rambo, Commando, you know, Martin Riggs. He is that kind of adventurer, Indiana Jones, you know. But way before Hollywood latched onto that. But that was the template Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote about, and they've used it and capitalised on it. But Greystoke didn't have much in the way of that. It was a very stately, grand movie, and I do like it a lot, but it's not one I'd return to. As I say, the 2016 Alexander Skarsgård version is exactly what I want. It was set in the period, it had great action, he was the guy that had been to back to aristocracy, back to his estate, but needed to go back home again, to go back to where it all began. And of course, there's also a big journey and adventure, and Odyssey's got to go on when he gets back there. But it was building up the character that we knew and loved, sort of reminding us who he was, reminding him who he was, and bringing it all to the fore for what was hopefully going to be more adventures. I mean, it didn't happen, did it? But Sony now seem to think that they can do that. But with a top-down, complete reinvention of the character and the brand as well, that's what they've said. Now, copyright, as I said before, the Burroughs estate own the copyright to that Tarzan call, and I'll talk about that Tarzan call in a minute. But they also, a lot of the Tarzan stuff is in public domain. I think the first 10 stories are actually in the public domain, and they can be filmed and adapted. But the later stuff can't be. And the Burroughs estate is very, very assertive. They will sue. They will come down like a ton of bricks. Even though there's been tons and tons of adaptations, you can't tell his later stories. But the later stories as well take in wars and colonial affairs and a lot of things that were happening at that time, back in the 20s and 30s. And he wrote into the 40s as well. So, you know, would people want to see that sort of thing? Well, maybe they would, but they're not going to get that. I'm going to put money on this. They're going to make a modern day version of Tarzan. And let's just hope and pray that he's not and no offence is intended here, but you know what we all now assume they mean. He's going to be transgender. He's going to be a Paralympian. He'll have a speech impediment and a food intolerance, and and he'll be black. They're going to completely, so every minority group, or every ethnic bit of diversity can be embroidered into this character, who really is one of the most altruistic of characters anyway, and one of the most universal, despite the aristocratic background, which he didn't know he had, because he was only a baby when he was lost in the jungle and orphaned and brought up by, oh God, is it Carly? I forgot his mother's name, the big ape. Or Car, I forgot. It begins with a K anyway. But then he goes back to it and doesn't really like that kind of world. But a lot of the adventuring side of it, certainly in Burroughs' later stories, and in a lot of the follow-ons, and in the graphic novels that have come out, he is a very sort of, not James Bond, although he does operate in the same sort of field as James Bond. Globe-trotting, palaces, chateaux, casinos, fantastic cars and stately homes. He does exist in that environment, but he's not Bond. If I could pinpoint someone in a sort of much more modern sort of milieu, it would be the Saint. Pick your Roger Moore Saint or your Ian Ogilvy, but that kind of, he might do jobs for the government, but he goes on his own adventures. He meets contessas and countesses. He's got Jane. He doesn't do the dirty on Jane ever, but he's often implicated in things like that, and nefarious deals with tyrants of tin pot bloody little shanty countries who want to take over the world, and he will engage in a lot of this sort of stuff, spy-like espionage. But as I say, he's more of the Saint than James Bond. And he certainly isn't a Bruce Wayne, because Tarzan is known. He might be Lord Greystoke, but he still struts around. Everyone knows, it's Tarzan. It's not like he's hiding behind an alter ego. He might put a suit on occasionally, a shirt and tie and all that sort of stuff. But he's still looking for the first, chandelier to swing from, and go back to the jungle at a moment's notice. So I dread to think what Sony really reckon they're going to do with this character. He should be an adventurer. He should be male. Because, we've had a female Tarzan, which was Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. You had that. Tanya Roberts did that. And if you want to do that, then do that. Do that again, And in a lot of the comic books as well, Jane is she's gone alongside him on adventures too. So she's a bit feisty. You got that with Margot Robbie in this version, and I enjoyed her portrayal there. And I believed in their chemistry as well. Some people didn't, but I thought it worked. I'm a big fan of that movie, but it is sadly rushed in that final act. And well, it's literally a rush because there's a great big animal stampede, But I still loved the story to it and thought it worked. It had enough action to keep me, entertained. And also, kind of wanting more. Well, now we're going to get more. But in what form, though? In what form? Is he going to be, well, they'll tell the origin story in a kind of like a flashback sort of thing. And, well, we brought him back, but with his strength and his abilities, we put him into the SAS. He became a Special Forces operative. And then you'd be going down the Daniel Craig Bond route, wouldn't you? Now, you've got to keep Tarzan as his own individual. He's susceptible to being used and exploited, but he always wins the day. He always fights back and saves the world. As I say, he's even encountered in the books, he's even encountered a predator. It's right behind me there, that one there. Tarzan versus Predator at the Earth's core. So it's brought in, obviously, Burroughs' Tarzan, Burroughs' idea of a world at the centre of the earth. But it brings in Predator. And I couldn't wait to get my hands on that book, but it's actually a huge disappointment. The Preds are hardly in it, and the battling isn't that good. There's a few clever little twists on it, but it's actually very flimsy, threadbare sort of story, and it really isn't what you think it could be. And wouldn't that be a great idea, though? Tarzan versus a predator in the jungle. Well, you've already had that, haven't you? Predator. Because what is the finale of Predator? Arnie strips down, adapts to the jungle, uses primitive weapons. He even issues a big war cry, to lure the predator in. So it has been done. Arguably, Rambo running around the jungle with no top on, climbing up trees and blending in and all that and taking out enemies. The lone guy on a vendetta spree, using the environment. Also blowing up most of it as well in the process. But you wouldn't get Tarzan doing that. Tarzan kind of looks after the environment. And yet in all the books, he's forever battling crocodiles, big gorillas, giant spiders, huge pythons, and lions and tigers and all sorts of things. He beats the shit out of them. But, and you kind of you're meant to be on the side of these, aren't you? But they're always, they're old, they're diseased, they were worshipped by a tribe, these are nasty versions. But the books do put across that he loves the environment, he loves the jungle, and he has a lot of affinity for the people and denizens of that environment. So you'd have to keep that. Just thought, because of the environment, that would be a huge element that they'd use and exploit. Not such a bad thing, because he's done it in Burroughs' books, he does it in that. But Greta Thunberg could be on board as a technical advisor. But he'll be there in his loincloth, holding up the polar ice caps, shoving them back in, with Tarzan's spit, sealing them around the edges, getting the ice flows back in there, hauling polar bears back up onto ice floes and catching killer whales to feed them with. I don't know. But I'm partly massively excited by this idea because I do love Tarzan. The whole muscle-bound, athletic sort of thing. Flowing locks, but that's the sort of thing that I like and I try to emulate. Having said that, running barefoot through jungles, not with my feet, mate, not my bunions, not on your Nelly, your Nelly the elephant. No, that's not for me. And I always winced, Johnny Weissmuller, and everybody, Ron Eli, doing it and just running through the shrubland. I'd be like, oh God. I can't even walk across a beach. A hot beach. Obviously you always go on hot sand. But then when you walk onto the concourse and the bars over there and there's little bits of gravel, I'm always amazed at the people who just stroll on, must have big leathery feet, like bloody hobbits, padding around, walking over broken glass and all sorts of things. And I'm like, ow, 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 and picking little sharp stones out the heel of my foot. And oh God, no, that's not for me. So I'm afraid I might be running around in a tartan loincloth. Big pair of boots on as well, though. Big pair of boots. That cry, of course, that cry. The, oh, I fucked that one up there, didn't I? There's loads of origin stories for that. Johnny Weissmuller, in that magnificent run for MGM with Moyne O'Sullivan, he maintained that he did that. And Moyne O'Sullivan backs him up on that. But there's plenty of other sources that say that is not what happened. There actually was an opera singer whose name I wrote down, Lloyd Thomas Leach, an opera singer. He says he did it, and many more people say that, yeah, he did supply the voice. But the voice was actually mixed in with the sound of a hyena, the sound of a dog growling, the sound of a violin, I think the G string, no jokes, the G string of a violin, and I think something else, what else was it? Oh yeah, well, that was one combination, recorded and played backwards, but with the operatic voice as well. Another version has it that it's an Austrian yodel just played in reverse. They all sound believable, don't they? But Ron Eli said that, no, I never did it. And in his TV show, and in a lot of the animated versions, that cry was the one that was used in the Johnny Weissmuller movies, just brought in and cleaned up and remixed, but it was not Ron Eli doing it. And I'd say, put it as your ringtone. See, it's funny how I could get that as a ringtone without anyone coming down like a ton of bricks on me, but if I played it here now, blocked, you are, sir, how dare you? So I'm not going to chance it. And I kind of want to as well, because it's really good, isn't it? But yeah, so what are your thoughts on Tarzan? Do you like the concept of it? Do you think, no, it's too outdated, it's colonial, it's wrong? And if you do think that, I'm afraid you're partly right, but you're mostly wrong. You'd have to go and read the original Edgar Rice Burroughs novels. Well, they're all short stories, really. You'd have to go and read those to find that, oh no, he actually does assimilate and he does look after tribes. He's not walking around like white royalty, even though he actually is of nobility. He doesn't do that. And he's a defender of the environment, of the jungle and the people that live there. You know, so you've not got much room for argument there. The bad guys tend to be genocidal, white supremacist bastards. They do. They're corrupt and they're evil. Moustache-twirling villains, you know. But that was of the time as well. Villains were always like that. Unless, of course, it was the Yellow Peril of Fu Manchu. But there you've got some serious stereotyping there. But so whatever your views are, if you like adventure movies, you like action, Tarzan's your man. There's no stopping this guy. And he can be reinvented with another person playing it. Look how many Batmen have we had? How many Bonds have we had? You know, you can do Tarzan again and again and again. Just tell a damn good story. Skarsgård looked the part. The way he built his body for that. They tried to do it as realistic as a man that had been brought up by apes. I mean, you're not going to... Just because you've been brought up by apes doesn't mean you're going to evolve into, like, ape form. But I like the way that he made his hands kind of... He could elongate and detach the bones and ligaments so he could use them as paws and with colossal strength and to climb and leap, and his feet as well. And I like the way that he was top heavy. He was very slim. The chest was strong. The shoulders were massively strong. He enhanced that even more for Robert Eggers with the Northman. I know, but you could see, but that look for Tarzan was absolutely spot on. It was brilliant. I loved it. In fact, I'm going to watch it after this. I've been playing the soundtrack to it, which is wonderful. Rupert Gregson Williams' score. A lot of Hans Zimmerisms in there as well. It is heavily Zimmerized. Not necessarily a bad thing, because I think it's a great score as well. So, let me know what your thoughts are on Tarzan. Can you do that cry? Can you do it? By the way, that is the victory roar of a bull ape. That's what it was. And Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote about that. That was the call. It was a challenge. It was a call to arms to bring the animals to him, to summon help. But it was also a victorious battle cry, a pure and utter savage primal. Yes, I've done it. I kicked your ass. Oh. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thought I'd mention this because I love Tarzan. I think it's great, and I've got quite a number of Tarzan t-shirts as well. And it's funny when you go into a pub. I've got one where it's actually the cover of one of the graphic novels where he's running at you, long flowing black hair, you know, just with a loincloth on, and there's a lion running alongside him, but it's in full colour. And every time I go in a pub wearing that, you always go like, oh, Tarzan, can you do the They're like, well, obviously you can't. And suddenly there's a chorus of people doing the Tarzan call all around the pub. It just brings out the beast in people, I suppose. Anyway, I have been always Shabby Kilt-Man. Please comment below, let me know what you think about potential new Tarzans. Are they going to make him a girl? Are they going to make him transgender? Will he have prosthetic limbs? You know, will he be non-binary? Oh God, it could be anything. But if they do anything like that, then you've ripped the guts and the spirit out of the character, and you've ruined it. Trying to keep, you can have that guy. You can even do it in a period, but you probably won't because you said you want to do it for the 21st century, so it's going to be modern day. In that case, then you've got your Jason Bourne, James Bond, the Saint style adventurer, globe-trotting, battling nefarious bad guys, but using his skills and powers and strength, but always trying to tie it in with the jungle and the wilderness, you know, that environment. Right. This time I am going. I'm going to see you all. And even my little protege there, Mr. Kentucky Fudge, I often find him on the grass outside, having been swinging around the trees in the cemetery overnight, yodeling. But he's got little arms, so he can't catch the next vine. So he's always there, like, oh, groaning, and oh, my back's gone again. Poor Kentucky Fudge. He never learns, does he?